Let me go ahead and introduce you to the two moderators who will be taking over the show today.
Okay.
The first one being Shabir Zakaria, who has been talking with you. In order to just tell you a little bit about Shabir, he is the founder, owner, and of this particular amazing company called LAST. He is also a part of huge organizations like BNI, and with your help, he even became an NLP practitioner recently. And the other one is Sapna Vasudevan. She herself is an iconic trainer from Mumbai, she is the owner of her own training enterprise called Sapna Vasudevan Training, and she is quite doing well. I mean, in her particular field over there in Mumbai as well. We are all trainers here, David, and it's a great privilege to have you here. So Shabir and Sapna, the show is all yours, guys. Take it over.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
Take it away. Take it away.
So, good evening, Dr. David. Good evening, audience, and welcome to Coffee with TF, brought to you by Training Frat. As most of us are aware, that Training Frat organizes this program, Coffee with TF, every Thursday at 5 p.m. It is a platform that gives us an opportunity to all the trainers and the aspiring trainers to interact with highly accomplished personalities in the field of training and to learn from them and their vast knowledge and experience. Today, we are privileged to have with us as our guest a renowned personality in the field of NLP, Dr. David Lincoln. Dr. David Lincoln is an international master trainer of NLP and hypnosis and the current president of ANLP India, the premier organization in India representing NLP in India and the surrounding countries. He is also a visiting faculty to many Indian colleges and universities and a very sought after mentor for top company executives throughout India and abroad. He is the owner and lead trainer for Goa NLP, an organization that imparts training in NLP. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice introduction.
Thank you. Sir, from the side of the audience, the first thing that we would like to ask you, the first question today, that how did NLP enter your life? Like, how did you get in touch with NLP and how has it interacted you on a personal level?
Okay. Well, I can say that I entered NLP world screaming and shouting, being dragged by a girlfriend I had at that time. Now, this was getting on to 30 years ago. And I went to, an introductory meeting of NLP, as one does, and then I did a short course, and then I thought this was interesting, and I did more. I was at the time, and I still am really, a consultant psychologist, what's called a clinical psychologist, which just means you work in hospitals and things. But that's where my background lay, in psychology. And I have to admit that at the beginning, when I first learned NLP, I thought it was a bit pop psychology, and I didn't think it would work. And then after my practitioner, immediately after, I went back, because I was staying there, back into the USA, where I was doing my naturopathic training. And whilst I was in the USA to make money, I was taking clients, patients, whatever one wants to call them, because in America it was very easy. It still is, but then, 25, 30 years ago, it was easy to find clients to help, because people used to boast, they would say, yes, I'm going to see my therapist, and of course I gave them extra boasting rights, because they could say, well, I got a British therapist, and so as soon as I got back, I had my first clients come along for a session. And the only way I can describe it is that I found myself doing NLP on him. And it was working. And, that sort of really tipped the clock over to the other side and think, wow, this actually works. And then the rest, I came back a year or two later and did my master practitioner. And then I did my trainer's training in California. And the rest, as they say, is history. But the great thing about NLP is that it's simple, not complicated, and it works. And most of you, if you're trainers, are doing it anyway, or doing some of it anyway. Because NLP is often described as the study of excellence. And what can I do to make myself better? Oh, I noticed that this trainer does that, and that seems to work well for him or her, so let me do that and see if that works for me. And this in NLP terms is what we call modeling, being able to get the best from somebody else and put it into you to make you the best. So generally speaking, NLP is not something that you would get a degree in or a PhD in, or say, you know, I'm this in, you know, like you would in something else. What NLP does is enhance whatever you do. So if you're a trainer, adding the NLP tools would make you that much better trainer. Because once you get into NLP at a slightly higher level, when you begin to look at the structure of how it works, you find it so simple to see somebody doing something fantastic. It's very simple to find out exactly how they do it, add it to your repertoire, and see if it works for you. And if it does, it makes you that better trainer. And if it doesn't work, you just throw it away. Simple. So there you are. That is introduction to NLP at the same time.
Thank you, sir.
Wow, sir. Thanks a lot, sir, for such a beautiful, it's so worth knowing how it really impacted and how it's really working for you as a person. So I'm very inquisitive to know what brought you to India from UK?
Well, I'd like to say it was the weather. I'd like to say, but it was a long story. I first came to India probably 22 years ago on business, and I was taken to Delhi where somebody I knew wanted to open up an IT school, and he was looking for advice and help in getting staff and so on. When I first came, I was very interested to find fakirs, you know, and street entertainers that we hear about, you know, see little boy climbing the rope, the Indian rope trick and so on. So anyway, that didn't happen as much as I'd like, but I spent 2 or 3 weeks on the business side of things. By the way, can I suggest to you, Sapna, is it, if you move your camera a little bit, because you're right on the edge, and then you'll be, or you.
And I'll just move this.
Yeah, oh, that's better. Now we can see all of you in all your glory. Fantastic. So after my trip to Delhi, the same person who was a friend of mine I've known for nearly 50 years, he's what you call NRI, we call them non-reliable Indians, you know the ones I mean. He was actually born in Africa from Punjabi parents and spent all his life. Well, he was kicked out, I think, by Idi Amin, you know, in the 1960s. So he came to England and was there ever since. Anyway, cut long story short, he said to me, oh, I just bought an apartment in Goa. He said, you must come, it's very nice. So I said, yes, okay, I came. So I came to Goa. This would be about 18 years ago. And I came for a week's holiday. And then I came for 2 weeks holiday. And then I came for 3 months holiday. And then I started becoming for 6 months, semi-retired, because I, you know, more or less finished my psychology practice. And I was happy to be semi-retired here. I was sitting on the beach when I got a phone call from London, the London ANLP, that's another organisation, British-based, saying that somebody from India had asked, they wanted to know about NLP and could I go and see them? And I did, and some of you may have heard of him. He's a trainer in Mumbai called Arfeen Khan. And I went, met up with Arfeen and then started running programs for him. And the rest of it sort of developed from there. And as, you know, I found it comfortable to be here. It's a nice, you see, the interesting thing, and telling Indians don't realize this, but India has probably the finest middle class living anywhere in the world. You know, if you classify yourself as middle class, whatever that means, you've probably got a cleaner, maybe a driver, maybe somebody that cooks. Now, you have to be upper class in England before you can employ one of those. When I left England the first time, I was working, as I say, in Harley Street. That's a place where the medics work. And I was doing quite well. I was top of the profession. But I could only afford somebody to come in 3 hours a week to do the ironing, because I hated ironing. You know, so. But here, you know, you don't realise how comfortable life is for a middle class person. I've had many people, in fact, I was talking to a trainer in Pune a little while ago, and he was saying, oh, I'd like to go to England. I said, well, look, I said, you've got a driver, you've got a cook, you've got a cleaner. How are you going to survive in England on your own? And you know, people don't look at the comparisons. You see a lot more money being made in England or America and against the money you've got here. But the difference is that here you've got a lot more money left over at the end of your month than you have in the other countries. So you have a much, much better life. And I enjoyed the heat, and I enjoyed going. I sort of just stuck here, just never left. And it just seemed, and then the demand on my training and people to run programs got stronger and stronger. And so primarily nowadays we run under a company called NLP Trainings Private Limited, and we run NLP, coaching, psychotherapy. That's it, basically, just those three. A few other things, hypnosis sometimes, and so on. But it's NLP. And, you know, when I first came to India, the NLP here was very disjointed. A lot of people running it, there wasn't actually proper NLP. There were people that were qualified that were running NLP programs, and the whole thing was getting in a hell of a mess. And so I saw this need to be able to standardize everything. So we set up the Association of Neuro Linguistic Programming, which is modeled exactly on the American board and the English board and so on. And that is now one of the largest standard setting organizations in the world, largest by numbers. We're happy to, it's a power cut, so I've gone dark. So we're happy to slow down numbers. You know, we've got nearly 10,000 members. And that does make us one of the largest NLP organizations in the world. A long answer to your question, but then I'm known for giving long answers to questions.
But that's an awesome answer, how you could connect with India. And that's beautiful, like to know the story behind you being a part of India right now. Yeah, good evening, sir. This is Sucheta Dhur.
Good evening, Sucheta. How can I help you?
Yeah, I was wondering that nowadays NLP is like a trend. Everyone wants to go for NLP practitioner or wants to know something about NLP. So how do you propose a success or a success of an individual who is probably first time considering that there are so many neurons in our body or has nothing to do with biology till yet, and is now considering to be an NLP practitioner and then the master and trainer? So how do you suggest a career of such a person who do not have any relation of psychological studies yet?
Okay. You don't need any qualifications at all to learn NLP. You just need the, so we say, the passion to learn something. As long as you can learn anything, you can learn NLP. Now, it does talk a little bit about the way your brain works and the way you think and so on, because basically the way you think is the way you are. And therefore, if you're thinking incorrectly, you will be operating incorrectly. I give a quick example of this. You know, I would ask you, so how often do you have your teeth checked? Probably, if you've got a good dentist, about every 6 months they come and have a look and so on. And then how often do you have your body checked? Apart from illness, maybe if you're lucky once a year, maybe for insurance purposes or whatever. And of course, if you're ill, you have your body checked. So then my question to you is, how often do you have your thinking checked? And of course, you never do. And so what tends to happen is a very old NLP maxim that says, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. So if you're happy with life, if everything is a bed of roses, you've got money in the bank, you're in a wonderful relationship with wonderful children, and a beautiful car and a lovely house and all that, then you don't need to do NLP. You found the secret. I have to come and ask you, how do you do that? But if you're like the vast majority of people, where you're struggling here, you're struggling there, things are not quite going the way you want them to go, the reason behind it is because you don't know how to change your thinking, how to change. And change is the only certainty in life. Every cell in your body changes. You are a new person within 2 years. You're completely new. So change is not only important, it's inevitable. But if you don't change the thinking, then you carry on doing the same old thing and wonder why you get the same old results, wonder why you don't succeed, because you do the same thing. So all we're doing in NLP is exploring the way you think, exploring the way your brain works, putting in some understanding of how other people think, how other people work. So you're not clashing with them all the time, you're harmonizing with people. And we have a whole sort of set of, I suppose you could call them a set of rules, we call them presuppositions. What these means are things that you assume about another person. And always assume the good in another person. You know, don't assume the bad. A lot of people do. All the, he or she's got shifty eyes. Don't like to look at that person. You know that. But it's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. But the problem is that we have been programmed to do the nonsense, right? And so what we like to do is to take those programs out and reprogram you to bring the best of you out in what you do. So if you are a trainer, you'll become the best trainer around, and then you will be, your natural abilities will bring you to the top of the pile of trainers. You know, not everybody gets to the top of the pile of trainers, but those that do have rather specific skills that if you're at the bottom of the pile, you don't have. And some of those skills take time to acquire, or some of those skills can be acquired using the principles of NLP, which I alluded to earlier in this talk. Does that answer your question, young lady?
Yeah, thank you so much. I could feel all the positivity in your answer. Thank you.
Good, good.
David sir, my question to you is, could you please explain how this Milton model works in training?
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so the Milton model is a language pattern. We have basically 3 types of language patterns that we use. There is the one which I would like to call your normal talking to people. Now, when you talk to somebody, you don't give a lot of detail normally. If somebody says to you in the morning, "Oh, hello, how are you?" You'll say, "Oh, I'm okay, thanks, how are you?" Even though you might be in agony. You know, you don't say, "Oh, I've got this terrible pain in my shoulder." You just don't bother. You keep a minimum amount of information to get through your day. Now, that's the middle bit. Now, above that and below that are the other 2 language patterns. One is called the meta program, which goes into finite detail. And the other called the Milton program, or Milton model, which takes you into a much more vague world. Now, vagueness is very good for people to learn. Because if I say to you something like, when you step on stage, you must step in with your left foot and then your right foot, and then you must put your elbows by your side and hip. And, you know, that's very specific and very meta, and that might work once. But next time you go on stage, you've got a different audience and it doesn't work. So therefore, we would say to you now, when you go on stage, you want to be relaxed. I'm not going to tell you how to be relaxed. As you don't know how to be relaxed, you're going to be relaxed. You're going to connect with your audience. You're going to do the eye connections. You're going to stand, and so I'm going to be much more vague about what you're going to do. Also, when you are answering questions, questions are a great way for people to learn. So if somebody says to you, for example, what is 2 plus 2? You could say, it's 4. Next question. But that won't teach that person anything, will it? So you would say, oh, that's an interesting question. So you've got 2 things and 2 things, and you're going to put them together. I wonder how many that would be. What do you use the question as a teaching aid to your audience. And to do that, you tend to go into the Milton language. If you go too heavy into the Milton language, your audience will start dropping off to sleep and into a trance state. So that's when the Milton language is used in therapy to help somebody become more relaxed, more into a more hypnotic type trance state where they're more comfortable at talking and so on. So the Milton language is a chunked up language. The meta is a chunked down language. And where we meet in the middle is where we meet. And the thing is, what's been identified in normal speech is what we call deletions, distortions, and generalizations. In other words, let me give you some quick examples. You are all sitting on a chair, I assume, unless you're standing, but you're sitting on a chair. So a chair, the word chair is a generalization. I know what it means, you know what it means, but I don't know what chair you're actually sitting on. I don't know if it's a hard chair or a soft chair, or a wooden chair, a bamboo chair, a metal chair, etc. And really, I don't need to know, so I accept that generalization, right? And then also in the language, you will leave a lot out, which we call deleted. You won't bother to say it because you don't think it's interesting to me. So deletion and distortion. The distortion basically is making something that you talk about fit your brain, your level of the world, your model of the world, rather. This is what we call distortion. And so this is okay. In general conversation, there's nothing wrong with any of that. But in a specific conversation, maybe you need to be more specific, or maybe you need to be more vague. I do in our training program, I would say to somebody, ask me a question that I couldn't possibly answer. And whatever question you answer, I'll give you an answer, but not what you expect. Let me give you an example, right? Somebody might say, oh, what's my grandmother's first name? You see, now, I don't know your grandmother's first name, but I don't have to say I don't know your grandmother's first name. I can use that as a teaching aid. So I would start to what we call chunk it up, using the Milton language. So I would say something, oh yeah, names, wonderful things, and we didn't have names, we would have difficulty understanding each other. Now I've taken it up, and then what we do cleverly is take it sideways. I take it up, and I say, talking about names, they started with connected to the job you did. So a very common name in the UK is Smith, because lots of people were blacksmiths. And if you were a blacksmith, your name was Smith. And so I've now answered the question without answering the question and creating a learning opportunity for the listeners. Every question, I'm sure you all know as trainers, there's no such thing as a stupid question or a silly question. They're all learning opportunities if you use the language pattern right. And the Milton language is the first bit you would do to chunk it up to bring a lot more people into the question. If somebody might ask a very specific question to them, do you think I should have my beard trimmed? And that's the only person in the room with a beard. Well, you don't want to spend a lot of time talking to that person about the beard because everybody else will be on their iPhones, bringing up their friends and everything else. So you need to grab all those people in. And the quickest way of grabbing all those people in is to chunk it up. And, depending on what you're training, you could chunk it up and say, a lot of good actors have got beards. And of course, beards are no good for women unless you are taking the part of the bearded lady. And so you chunk it up, and you keep the interest of the whole group. And that's one of the skills that trainers need to have, is how to keep everybody's attention all the time, even when you're answering the silly questions. But there's no such thing as a silly question, but you know what I mean. So the Milton language patterns helps us to do that.
Like, that brings me to ask a very personal question. A personal question in the sense, something which every trainer nowadays would be really interested in knowing the answer to. The question is, well, can you please share one practical NLP technique that can help the trainers to remain afloat? The trainers, or let's not just say trainers, anybody to remain afloat, even during the days when they are feeling very low or powerless.
Okay. Well, for the trainer personally, we call this a state, being in a state, okay? When you wake up in the morning, you might be in a terrible state, especially if you had a few beers and too much Vindaloo the night before, you know. So there are techniques we use in NLP, it's called anchoring, which is a way of reminding yourself of what your state should be, quickly and effortlessly, right? And so if you're taking a training, for example, the stepping on the podium, the platform, the dais, whatever you want to call it, the stepping onto that should put you immediately into the trainer's state. No matter how you're feeling, you can feel great in that state. But you need to set that up first. You see, if I can just sort of go a little sideways on your question, people get a bit depressed from time to time, right? Or get a bit down. Now, when you get down or when you get depressed, you're associating yourself with bad ideas. This will happen, things are going wrong, it's nasty. And the more you associate with the bad ideas, the worse you become. So if you're feeling a bit down, I would say, well, when did you feel good? When did you last feel good? And you might say, yesterday or last week. And I would say, okay, so just imagine going back to that time when you felt good. How are you feeling? What's going on inside you? And that is the state that we want to anchor, so that we can anchor it on our wrist or on a pen or something. And so that when we go into meeting the students or having a meeting or whatever you're going to do, you can, what we call, fire your anchor, and you can feel immediately in that good state that you need to be. State is often confused with emotion. Emotions come along with a state. But a state, you know, I can put you all into a great state, or I can put you into a bad state, depending on how I talk. You see, if I say to you, for example, putting you into a good state, what was the best thing that happened to you last year? You know, and you think, oh, well, maybe I had a great birthday party, or I did this. And as soon as you start thinking about the great thing that happened to you last year, the feelings associated with it would come back. And likewise, if I can say what was bad, and then those associations come back. But of course, you're very good at your bad states. You don't want to worry about those. What you want to worry about is your good state. So you could have an anchor. An anchor can be an object, you know, a lucky coin. It can be an object, it can be a place, it could be just a thinking pattern. You know, I sometimes say, if I'm caught off guard, I say, oh, just give me a moment to compose myself. And that means, give me a moment to put myself into the state required to answer your question, or the state required to teach you this, or teach you that. So, in fact, if I can just, using a bit of the meta language, or what we say, chunk it up, every single thing you do in life is state dependent. It's how you feel, right? If you want to have a cup of tea, a cup of chai, why? Because you feel like a cup of chai. You've got some state inside that says a cup of chai. If you want to like somebody, or if it's, you know, love somebody, that's all a state. That's all it is. And once you can control the states, you control you. And this is sometimes chunked out of NLP and called emotional intelligence. But it's just a tiny bit of NLP. It's a bit like aqua acupuncture is a tiny bit of Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. So state control is a very important part of NLP, and it's also controlling your emotions. Because your emotions, your states are all tied together. We know how you make a state, how you make an emotion. We know how to make it, we don't quite know exactly. We know that all emotions are based on chemical actions in your brain. We don't know what exactly is the switch to turn on this chemical. You know, I want a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that, and now I feel fantastic. We don't quite know what that is, but we do know that if you remember a good state, then you will turn those switches on. There's a guy in America called Herbert Benson, he's an MD, and I remember I was at a conference with him many, many years ago now on what's called the placebo effect. And I'm sure you all know what the placebo effect is. He used to say, no, he said, I don't call it the placebo effect. He said, I call it remembered wellness. See, if you start remembering what you are like when you're well, the wellness follows. It just has to follow. So if you remember what you were like at the best training you ever did in your life, then that will follow. All the states will follow. Everything will follow along with it. So anchoring, there's one thing for you, Paul.
Thank you so much, David. Anchoring is...
That's what it's called in NLP, anchoring.
Definitely learn, and I'll try to train others on that. Thank you so much, David.
Okay. 100 rupees, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. David. Well, sorry guys, due to crunch of time, we are ending open forum here, and those whoever have a question, they can actually post their questions on the comment section once the video has been uploaded in YouTube. And my personal question, Dr. David, we would love to know to know more about, or maybe more insight about NLP, if you could go ahead and...
Okay, well, all NLP starts with the Certified Practitioner Program. At the moment, we're starting with an online, we're doing quite a lot, so I'm doing with all sorts of other trainers, online program called an Associate Practitioner, which is a step down because it hasn't got all the actual, light just came back on. Hasn't got all the oh, it's gone off. This is Goa. This is the bad part about a Goa. The light comes on, it goes off, it comes on, it goes off. So it starts with the practitioner or the associate practitioner. Now, what we've done in this lockdown, we've done an associate practitioner, and then when you've done that, we then do a practitioner online. And then the master practice and the trainer's training and so on really cannot be done online. It's akin to like trying to learn martial arts online. You know, imagine judo online and then you've got to get hold of somebody and throw them. It's not the same as doing it online. So that's the starting point, and we are running quite a lot. I got 3 coming up in the next month, all in the evenings. They're 6 sessions of 2 hours each. One is being run with a guy called Ramlingham from Bangalore. Another one I'm running with Dr. Mangesh Das, who's a professor of HR, quite well known. And another one I'm running with another master trainer from the UK, Lord Daniel Laws. So they're coming up. Plus we're running parenting and mind mapping and all sorts of other allied subjects just to keep everybody interested. So just keep in touch with me. Just put my name in a search engine, it will come up with me, David Lincoln, like Abraham. You can remember that. And of course, you can put it on your message thing, and no doubt one of you will pass it over to me. No problem.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. David, for sharing your experience of, your experience and giving such a beautiful insight about NLP. Thank you so much. Promising that we will have more prominent guests coming to our forum and sharing their knowledge and their experience. Thank you so much and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.